Hi, my name is Eden or Eden, and this is my new Booktube account that I decided to start in 2025. I was convinced to start this account by one of my friends, Amira, who I will tag in the caption below because she has also recently started her own Booktube account. I decided that my first video would be the new Booktuber tag. I want to talk a little bit about myself and introduce myself before I got into the newbie Booktuber tag. Currently 22. I'm French and Egyptian. I speak French and a little bit of Arabic, which I am working on. I did my undergrad in comparative literature, and I'm currently doing my master's in English literature with a specialization in fantasy. If you can't tell from that, I love fantasy, but I also try to keep myself open to a whole variety of genres. I go by they them pronouns, and I am a lesbian. I have been in bookish spaces before, mainly on like book Twitter and book talk and bookstagram. I had a blog before and I'm remaking my blog at the moment. By the time I post this video, it should be up and running, inshallah. We'll see how that goes, but that is my goal. I do intend this to be a Booktube specific account. I feel that it is slightly inevitable that I will leave the niche in some way, because as much as I love reading, I also have a bunch of other hobbies and interests, and I have never been able to contain myself to one specific thing on any kind of account. I had a book Twitter account, now it's a book Twitter and like fandom stuff. Book talk account that is also multi-fandom, and I talk about other interests and things like that on there. The only one that I managed to keep specifically bookish related was my bookstagram, but I didn't end up using it because I felt a little bit constrained. I guess, well, actually there is another real one, which is my blog, but my blog I've always intended to kind of have as like a place where I can write about books and other things depending on what I'm interested in talking about. My other interests, a big one would be anime and manga, especially manga, which I have written about academically, both for like final papers and for one of my bachelor theses. I also enjoy games, primarily games that I can play on my phone or my iPad, which is mainly like rhythm games or some open world games. I have played a few of the Hoyoverse games and the new Nikki game, I believe it's called Infinity Nikki if I remember correctly, and also some otome games, I will not lie. I have also been really big on participating in fandom spaces since I was in middle school. I enjoy reading and writing fanfics, just participating in discussions, and also sometimes I make edits of some of my favorite ships. So now for the new to Booktube tag. The first question is, why did you start this channel? So there are a few reasons for me. The first one is that I've been meaning for a little while to start exploring with longer form content. I know that TikTok, which I do have an account on and I do make videos on there as well, I know that TikTok allows for longer form content, but it's not really the platform for longer form content. And I do have a blog where I write longer form content, but writing longer form content versus making videos is completely different. The media and the kind of content that you might make can be different. So I decided that this was a new avenue that I could explore, and I have been quite interested in that. I also mentioned earlier that my friend Amira did try to convince me, so I let her gently bully me into making a Booktube account officially, because otherwise I likely would have put this off forever if I didn't have her encouragement. So go subscribe to her because she also has a Booktube account and she also deserves all the love. The second question is, what are some fun and unique things that you can bring to Booktube? Honestly, I am not entirely sure yet. I'm still trying to explore and figure out what kinds of videos that I would like, and from there I'll probably figure out what it is that I can bring. I would like to bring in a researched aspect and an academic aspect a little bit, not in a like pretentious way or looking down on other people way, but one of my favorite things about my master's in literature and what I did in undergrad was researching some of my favorite books and coming up with all of these ideas. I think that it would be a lot of fun for me, especially, to make videos about research that I've done and conclusions that I've come to, and how theory can be applied to my favorite books and my favorite manga and my favorite media of all different types in a fun and accessible way. I will do my best to make sure that it is accessible The third question is, what are you most excited about for this booktube channel? Honestly, I am excited to perhaps even foster a community, and even if that community is like 5 different people who may or may not watch my videos, I will be excited just to be able to share my ideas and to have even one person like my videos. I have low-key wanted to make a YouTube for years, since I started watching YouTube in middle school, and I'm really excited to join and be a part of this community. The next question is, why do you love reading? Honestly, that is such a hard question. It has just been something that I have loved pretty much all of my life. I can't imagine not loving reading, so it's hard to think of a why. For me, it also depends on genre. I love reading fantasy books and completely immersing myself in them. I love reading romance books, just imagining the romance, it's fun for me. And I love reading literary fiction and seeing all of these like interesting ideas that are being played out. And even recently, when I was younger, if you told me I would grow to love nonfiction, I would not have believed you. But nowadays, I love reading nonfiction and I love learning, as long as the nonfiction relates to something that I am interested in. The next question is, what book or series got you into reading? And for me, I started reading at such a young age that I can't even tell you what book or series that was. I'm Orthodox, so technically we celebrate on the 7th. My family also does get together on the 24th and 25th, and that's where we do the main gift exchange. Not super important, but on the 25th, when we were having dinner and we were talking, I learned that even when I was a child small enough that I could not yet actually read, I would read books and just look at the pictures. I have a picture of me reading and being interrupted. I look so annoyed at the fact that I was interrupted. The next one is, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? I think the biggest question that I would have is, how do you get the idea for content so that you can consistently put out content and film videos? Sometimes, because I have a TikTok and I go on hiatuses every now and then. 2025 will be my year. I will not be going on hiatuses anymore, and I will begin posting consistently again. But whenever I'm on hiatus especially, I have trouble coming up with ideas and for videos that I could make. And so that has been one of my biggest struggles. And so I would just like to know how booktubers manage to always have ideas for content, especially because booktube is a longer form. So instead of, just an idea for a 30-second video, you need an idea for a longer video. So that's the question that I would have. The next question is, what challenges do you think will be the hardest to overcome starting a booktube? For me, it has more to do with my mental health, because sometimes there are just days where I don't have the energy to make content and to film and things like that. And so I think the hardest thing to overcome is those ruts that I find myself in, where I just can't get myself to work on things. It is something that I'm going to try to work really hard on in 2025 to get through those and to still make content, especially if I want to take this account seriously and my other social medias like my book talk, which I want to begin taking more seriously again in 2025. So that is mainly going to be my biggest struggle, if I'm going to be honest. The next question is, when did you start reading? Technically, I started reading before I even started actually reading, but as far as being like a reader, I have been known by my teachers as an avid reader since at least the 2nd grade, where I would get in trouble because I would hide books under the desk and I would read them when I was not supposed to be during class. Similarly, my parents used to punish me by taking the books that I was reading at the moment and putting them over the fridge because they knew that I would not be able to reach them. So for me, it's been all of my life that I've been reading. If you're wondering why I'm studying literature for my major, that is why. The next question is, where do you read? I read library books, I read my physical books. I read on Kindle, I read on my phone, I read on my iPad. I basically read everywhere. Any kind of way that you can ask that question, whether you're talking about where I physically sit when I read, or whether you're talking about where I get the books that I read, the answer is going to be everywhere. It's such a big part of my life that I can pull out a book, I can pull out my phone and read pretty much anywhere. I am still going to be respectful of people. No, I'm not an elementary schooler hiding a book under my desk, but I am willing to read pretty much anywhere. I read all forms. I read print, digital, audio. I'm very versatile in that way. The next question is, what kind of books do you like to read? I mentioned earlier that I try to be pretty open with genres. I'm more open-minded than I used to be, but I'm willing to read books of almost any genre. My favorite genres though, I mean, number one will always be fantasy, which is why I'm doing my master's in fantasy literature. I have loved fantasy books for as long as I can remember. I enjoy romance books, especially as a palate cleanser for heavier books like fantasy and literary fiction. I have been getting into literary fiction, especially if it's queer or Arab lit. I enjoy classics. I wouldn't be studying literature if I didn't. I've recently been getting into nonfiction, so this is more of a like in the last couple years kind of thing. I used to not like nonfiction at all, but if the nonfiction is about history, if it's literary criticism, or even if it's just a nonfiction book about something that I'm interested in, I am more than likely going to eat it up. I'm also into sci-fi. I love historical books. Like I said, I'm willing to try something from almost any genre. If you recommend it to me, I might not read it immediately, but I will read it eventually. If anything that I just said interests you, please feel free to like and subscribe and join me on this journey.